Welcome to the Listen Up podcast, where we explore hearing loss, communication, connections, and health.
Hi, everybody. Dr. Mark Sims here. I'm the host of the Listen Up podcast, where I feature leaders in healthcare and hearing loss. This episode is brought to you by the Listen Up Hearing Center. I help patients to effectively treat their hearing loss so that they can connect better with their family and friends and remain independent. The reason I'm so passionate about hearing loss is because I lost my brother Robbie twice. First to his hearing loss from radiation to his brain tumor, and later when he passed away. I only care for ears. I'm the E of ENT. I've performed over 10,000 ear surgeries and care for many more with nerve hearing loss. I'm very passionate about it, and because of that, I founded the Listen Up Hearing Center. I also have written a book called Listen Up, A Physician's Guide to Effectively Treating Your Hearing Loss. If you want to learn more about that, go to www.listenuphearing.com. Today, I'm really excited. I have Dominic Bartola. He is a patient who's going to share his journey, but he's the Chief Marketing Officer and Chief of Staff at qBotica. They build an automation ecosystem for customers via robotic process automation and intelligent document processing. For the previous decade, Dominic has also served as a faculty member for the Maricopa Community College and was recently awarded Outstanding Faculty of the Year for his instruction and work in management, leadership, and marketing courses. He's someone who was born with hearing loss. He's an active disability awareness advocate and sits on several nonprofit boards, including Diversity Leadership Alliance, where he currently chairs the Diversity Leadership Alliance Youth Leadership Academy. He's also a public speaker and does keynotes and guest lectures. He's got a really broad experience and he's really enthusiastic. And I'm really excited to have him on here. Dominic, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
So you can call me Mark. To start out, Dominic, I just want to thank you. Dominic was very generous. He gave me a nice bottle of bourbon to try, and I can open yes, but I want to thank you for your generosity. So, one of the reasons I asked you to come on is I think you're amazingly articulate and great to talk about it, but you also have a great journey that would be great to share with people. So tell us a little bit about your hearing loss, how it was diagnosed, when you had it, and how you started treating your hearing loss.
Yes, I'd be happy to. And thank you again for having me on. I'm really appreciative. It's interesting because I watched these podcasts a little bit before I was able to work with you a little more closely. But my hearing journey really started very early, obviously, that's the earliest memory I have is, in the hearing booth, having a hearing test, raising my hand, and back in the 80s, very early 80s. And I was very fortunate because my family, especially my father, was able to just really put me in front of those opportunities and took advantage of those opportunities that were presented. We were not well off by any means. As a matter of fact, my father was a single father for a very long time in the early days, and he was able to find community resources and be able to help me with my speech. And speech and communication is very important to him. And fitting me with the right equipment. I was very fortunate to have hearing aids very early on. As a matter of fact, I do have memories of a battery pack on my hip, and and I had that, and I was just trying to be happy, be involved. Didn't really realize I was different. I was actually in a school for the deaf, and sign language was my first language, and then after, being fitted with hearing aids and being able to understand speech a little bit better, I was able to learn and develop reading lips. And that really was the start of, I would say, building my confidence. And being able to have that confidence was not only having hearing aids, but also being able to read lips really well. And then they realized, I was able to go to a school that was more, I was actually the only person in that school with a disability. And they, at the time, fought the stigma, right? They didn't want someone in that school. My father was able to put me through that and win, so to speak. And I was able to go through, be surrounded by those individuals that were hearing. And then really fast forwarding about 16 years of speech therapy, being presented with many different opportunities, and up to education and starting a business in the early days of my 20s. And that really set things up for me, and having those people around me and having the belief from very successful individuals, and also myself being more persistent and not being willing to give up and really willing to work on my speech, because I feel if I was able to speak better, I would be able to communicate better. And then over time, my hearing, I would say, progressively got worse and worse and worse with hearing aids. And so I needed to make a decision after having a family to approach the idea of a cochlear implant, even though it was suggested to me probably the first time in maybe 2005 was the first time I was suggested to explore cochlear implant. And I was very against it. And my family was again only because we didn't know what we didn't know. And so going through life, making things work, master's degree, teaching businesses, things like that, came to a conclusion about 2 years ago, maybe less than 2 years ago, that I need to get this done. And I was recommended to Dr. Mark Sims as one of the best in this city, in the country, all of these things. And my first interaction with Dr. Mark Sims was interesting because I had never met anybody who was just so direct, right? He was like, this is what you need. What are you waiting for? And I guess I just wasn't ready for the truth. And so I accepted the truth and went through that process. And April 21st, had my surgery of 2022. And it was an astounding success for me because I took the program seriously. And so here we are. And I'm happy to be on this call and share my experience in more detail. But I do have one implant in my left ear, and hopefully be able to get it in the other ear when that time comes.
So just for the listeners, for time dates, Dominic had his cochlear implant less than 2 months ago, right? Because it's the 17th of June. So it's a wonderful journey, Dominic, especially, I think some of the things to highlight is the role that your father played. I mean, there definitely needs to be a parent typically that advocates for somebody. And so did he do a lot of speech therapy with you? In other words, make it say words correctly and stuff?
Yeah. And, I didn't, I'm glad you asked me that, because that is probably maybe 80 to 90% of the reason I'm able to speak better is because of his work behind the scenes. And he would drive, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and I, just remember reading, he would make me read all of the billboards. Oh, wow. And we would be driving and he would be, pronounce that. And I mean, at the time, it was just car dealerships. It was just always car dealerships all over the place. Maybe those are the only ones that could afford billboards at the time. Yeah. And now it just seems like personal injury attorneys and everything. But
more interesting maybe when you were a kid, right?
Right. And I would just have to pronounce these car dealerships, and you go to restaurants, you may, say this, ketchup and mustard and, soup. And my S pronunciation took a long, long time, because it was just really hard to hear it in the hearing aid, but be able to read it and say it took me quite a while. But he was very, very central into that, in that part of speech development.
Yeah, for the listeners to understand that, I mean, there's two parts to the hearing. Obviously, it's hearing other people. That's one part. But the other part of getting clear speech is hearing yourself. In other words, being able to have the feedback of what you're saying and that you're saying it appropriately. And so when you don't hear as well as Dominic's reporting his childhood hearing, it takes somebody else to kind of coach you. And so, yes, there is speech therapy a couple times a week, but ultimately the success he's describing is because his father did continual speech therapy. It sounds like every waking hour of the day did his father.
All the time. And it became a game. He was rewarded. He knew he grew up with training dogs, actually. So he just understood, the importance of positive reinforcement, right? And the importance of just, being just rewarding successful ways to speak, and just being able to remember it and practice it is also a part of it too.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So the other thing that really struck me as you're telling me your story, Dominic, is as a general practice, we have a hard time getting teenagers to wear their hearing aids. That doesn't sound like that was as much of an issue for you. And so talk a little bit about that. Was it because you were so dependent on it, or your father had made it so you didn't think it was an issue? Or, I mean, we all have puberty, and teenagers is not a fun time for anybody.
No. So my thing, I would say there's probably two parts. And that's actually a great question, because I've thought about that often. So I was very involved. I had maybe the school, being in school, my teenage years, I was actually in an all boys school. And I may have been at the time the only one with a disability at that all boys preparatory school. And I'm not a tall guy by any means. I'm not a big guy by any means. And I did get picked on quite a bit. And part of the story with not only speech development was I grew up playing sports. And the sports that I was involved in, ice hockey, which was, it takes multiple things to think about. I was able to adapt really well, learn how to skate really well. And I think that helped me a lot with my confidence. And so even though I was able to deal with, being picked on, right? I had to wear my hearing aids to be successful. I had to be able to hear these teachers, and they didn't have accessibility, options like they do today, right?
This was before the Americans with Disabilities.
Yeah, it was close to it. And then the school the school was very far behind it.
Right.
And looking back, I know that they probably considered it, maybe didn't think about it. And I would say the biggest part of that was building my confidence through sports, and initially dealing with a few bullies. It really made me shine. And I think constantly just wearing them, I just felt better hearing than I did not hearing. So my feelings, my confidence level was, if I wear my hearing aids, I can hear better, obviously. And by hearing better, I get more confidence. And that's really what helped me. And that's to this day. That's why as soon as I wake up, I put them in, and I don't take them out until I go to bed. And I just wear them all day. And I'm
part of you in terms of being rehabilitated, right?
Absolutely.
Like glasses for people who have vision problems.
Yes. And yeah, there is a stigma maybe at the time, but with hearing aids. And I also was now that I think about it, Mark, I kind of was a quasi-deaf hearing loss person, but not really. I felt like I almost created my reality that like it wasn't there, but they were there. Like it was something that I did.
Like you didn't have it, even though you had it.
I acted like I didn't have it, and it wasn't a crutch. Yeah, it was just something I just had to have.
Well, that's sometimes people say you got to fake it to make it, right? Like you got to pretend that you don't have it
exactly.
to have it, right?
Yeah. So I just basically pretend, not in a bad way. I just said, look, I'm got to wear this, but there's other things. It's not about what they're thinking. It's about my thinking and what I have to do to be successful at that time.
So, Dominic, one of the things that's fascinating, as conversations you and I've had, through our relationship is, you may or may not know this, but one of the biggest fears most people have is having to speak publicly.
Right.
And so that's in normal hearing individuals. And so One of the things that really struck me was when, I learned that you also do public speaking and give speeches, right? Because, that's something everybody's afraid of. You've overcome that fear, and you have a hearing impairment, and you've done it in that context. So tell me, how did you get into that? I mean, I just think it's amazing that you do this and you've been successful at it. But I mean, even if, not that it's to take away from it, but the fact that you're hearing impaired and have been successful and pursued this is amazing to me.
Thank you. I would say, like you said, like you shared before, I did have coaches. I did have people. I was surrounded by very successful individuals that just encouraged me after I was able to get out of the teenage college phase. I started finding individuals that were just highly successful, and I asked them to mentor me. And one of those individuals was a very good public speaker. As a matter of fact, I met him at a convention, and I was just so impressed with this person who grew up with nothing, grew up with all kinds of challenges. And I just saw myself as that person. I said, I could do that. And I said, I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do that. And I just asked him for help. And he invited me to several different things. And I started practicing and getting in front of people and started speaking horribly. At first, like just terrible. I remember, I mean, just all kinds of things, and getting introduced to Dale Carnegie, getting introduced to Toastmasters, and just trying to find every resource I could, because oddly enough, I enjoy being scared. So I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the nervousness and the ability to, I mean, everybody gets butterflies in their stomach, but I like those feelings. So I like when I'm about to be introduced for a keynote, even if it's it could be in front of 15 people or even 500 people, I still get butterflies. And I like that feeling. And then going up there and being myself in front of everybody and just being an open book is very cathartic. And it's easier as you practice. And I just kept practicing and practicing pro bono speaking for years. And then I decided to say, hey, we need people were requesting me so much that I needed to start charging for it. You know what I mean? I needed to start making a speaking fee out of it, and create a program and leadership program, marketing program, all kinds of different programs, speaking about diversity awareness, disability awareness. And I was able to receive a hearing dog, which also played a big role, and being able to share about receiving a hearing dog. What does a hearing dog do? And that hearing dog at the time was, his name is Plato. And Plato was, unfortunately, we just recently let him go, but he was a big part of that continent. And obviously people love dogs. And then it almost became they love dogs more than Dominic, and said they want Plato to be on stage. And then they want me also to tell the story. And so it just kind of came this really positive cycle. And I just really enjoyed doing that. And, just sharing the story, sharing some lessons, and lots of practice.
That's great. And so the other thing that I really enjoyed you sharing with me is your love of music.
Yes.
And so, tell me a little bit about how that developed, and, maybe what that was before and what that is now. And do you notice any differences, the difference between your hearing loss with hearing aids and your hearing loss with a cochlear implant?
The journey started, my father was very involved in jazz music, and a lot of jazz music some of the smooth jazz music, there's no words. It's just, Kenny G and a saxophone or whatever, and all of these jazz musicians, and he would play them loud enough for me to be able to hear it. And I was able to, just really benefit from that. And then I started learning how words, and what I would do back in the day was, even though I didn't hear everything, they used to have these lyrics in the CDs. So you would get the CDs, you get the book, and I would be able to read the lyrics while the music was going. And I just started to really kind of understand and feel the music at the time. When I was able to hear it early, way earlier, with hearing aids. And then I was introduced, I'll never forget, I was 14 and I was working several jobs. I worked for my family. I made pizzas during the week, and on the weekends I made bagels. And somebody introduced me to electronic music, and I was able to listen to electronic beats and music. And that became one of my favorite music genres, is electronic music, because most of the time there's no words. It's just dance, beats. And that's my love, is really towards mostly electronic music. So with the implant now, I'm able to hear it a lot better.
Is it the repetitive bass that you like? The
repetitive bass, the I think they call them synthesizers.
Right, yeah.
However they do it, I don't really know. But my younger brother, I'm the oldest of four brothers, and I'm fourth.
Your microphone is I'm losing your voice here a little. Can you, I don't know.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, a little closer. Yeah. Great.
How about?
That's perfect. Yep.
Okay. And my brother became a music producer, and he would develop instrumentals for hip hop and R&B. And
That's
so
cool.
he would develop those instrumentals because I was falling in love with electronic music. He also fell in love with electronic music, and then
Made a living.
he ended up becoming he produces music, instrumentals and R&B and hip hop, like background music. So I love music more now. I'm able to enjoy, as a matter of fact, of just listening to some music right before this podcast to get pumped up and, just to really be ready. But I love it now. I was able to receive a gift from someone randomly after I announced my cochlear. It's like an African
Harp of some
harp,
sort.
or I forget what it's called. It starts with a Z, but I'm able to listen to the keys and listen to this and learn how to play this as an actual instrument. And I'm able to do this with my cochlear implants. And so it's just really interesting, and music's, a wonderful thing.
So how would you say it's different now that you've had a cochlear implant? What how would you describe it?
It's more clear. There's things that I didn't know existed in certain tones, I would say. I'm not really sure what the language is, but the tones, the beats, the voices, being able to hear those voices. And now I know why voices and the instrumentals are really part of the song. Yeah, and now I can hear those small, subtle differences.
Yeah, a voice is another instrument in the song.
Yes, exactly. It is. And now I can hear the voices. So I'm listening to more music where there's voices and lyrics, and it's been wonderful. And now all the lyrics are online. So it's been great to be able to listen to that. And I mean, even like slow music, or, like John Mayer and, Jason Mraz, and there's easy voices to be able to follow along.
I guess you should try a cappella because it's all voices.
I could do that. Yeah, definitely. There is a group, I want to say, somebody told me to listen to a group that's just no instruments, and they all sing.
Acapella,
yeah.
right? So
acapella, yeah. So
they do the beatboxing, and everything is done that way. Probably the most famous one is called Pentatonix, but they're
that's who it is. Yeah, they introduced me, and I asked for music on my Facebook page, and I mean, I must have 100+ comments of everybody saying this, listen to this song, listen to this. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm still going down through it.
That's great. So one of the other things, can you describe, so you got the cochlear implant, so you treated your hearing loss with cochlear implantation. What were the different, do you have any stark, wow, this is totally different when you first got activated? What are the things that you really, were the fundamental things you experienced, wow, this is the big difference. If I could say to people, these are the things in my own personal, so it's a side, but I have patients who we do restoration, and one guy said to me, I hadn't heard my urine in the toilet, tinkling in the toilet for 30 years. I forgot it did that. Those types of things. So I just thought that was a funny thing for people to share, because it's the smaller things in life, right?
It's interesting. I was telling people, I said, the toilet is so loud. How do you live with this? I mean, it's so loud. I mean, I literally have to flush and run because it's so loud, because it's just maybe because they're in such a tight space. And the sound just goes everywhere. And as a matter of fact,
it's not graceful. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I just really, I would say other sounds that I didn't really know. We have a chime, a wind chime, and the way my implant is picking it up is just, it almost sounds like it's right here.
Wow.
And it's great most of the time. Right. And sometimes I remember we were like, I got to take this down. So I took it down. And we had, I didn't realize there's also in our daily life, because of technology, there's so many things that beep, the fridge beeps, the oven beeps, the dishwasher beeps, lots of things had these little beeps, and I didn't know that existed. So that was definitely enhanced. And it's kind of the way I've been describing it to people is now you know that we have these photo editing apps, and you get a blurry, dark photo, and you click like the enhance button, and it kind of enhances the photo, right? And I think that's kind of how I mentally picture it. And the hearing, I think, was just kind of like there, but it was blurry, it was dark, maybe you couldn't really see it, so to speak. But then you click the enhance button, everything just kind of becomes brighter and much more clear, and much more crisp. And so that's been that experience for me. In water splashing. I've never been able to hear like water going through the faucet, splashing.
Have you been near a waterfall or a river?
Waterfall was really nice, or in the pool. Water is such a splash, and there's so many like little sounds with water is like bubbling and splashing. Never been really be able to hear that ever.
Have you been to the ocean yet?
Not with this cochlear, but we will. We're going.
Yeah, because I imagine like the waves and all that is going to be.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. We're going in 2 weeks for July 4th weekend.
Good for you.
Looking forward to that. And then fireworks. I mean, who knows? Probably just don't need the cochlear implant for that.
Oh, that's one thing. You can't take it all. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I take it off for that, for sure.
See that and feel the booms. You don't necessarily need to hear that.
That's okay. I'm not being tested on that, so I'm good.
Well, that's great. And so, I mean, if there was somebody out there who's like, I'm not sure I should think about getting this. I'm afraid of the surgery. What would you tell them?
Great question. I had the same thought.
I think you were a little concerned about that too.
I was very concerned. Very concerned only because maybe I should have asked more questions, but after the fact, I think I would say your practice being minimally invasive and just efficient, I would say was the best word I can describe it. It just seemed very efficient, the process. But I had the confidence of just knowing that you take this very seriously, and that's who you want. You want, somebody who just is exceptional. And that's what I speak about. I speak about being an exceptional at what you do. And so that you're a perfect example of that, and being that exceptional in your work. And so it's almost like an artist. It's almost like art perfecting. I don't know how to explain it, but I got that energy. And what I would say to somebody is do as much research as you can, because I was in a place of you have nothing to lose.
Right.
Because it's already lost. And so all you have is the game. And yes, the surgery process was challenging, but I've been telling people that have messaged me, maybe they've been like curious and like, what was it like? I say, look, try to have your health in order, because the healthier you are before your surgery, the better your recovery.
That's correct.
Take care of yourself as much as you can, not only before, but also after. Eat the right foods during the recovery process. Try to stay away from all the processed foods. Don't eat donuts the day after your surgery and things like that. And that's something I read in the groups when I asked for tips. So I took that very seriously. And I just felt like I was in good hands. And I think that anybody who's hesitant should know that, they're in good hands. And I asked you that question in the beginning. I said, this isn't your first surgery. You've been doing this. And you said something like, yeah, you're number 456 or something. And I was like, okay, you've been doing this a little while. So, it's something that gave me the confidence to just put yourself through it, make that decision. And also another part of that, and I have that to my benefit, is my wife was a very big supporter. And mostly obviously for her benefit in some ways, but she was very supportive, and I know not everybody has that.
No, she was definitely on board, and she was an asset for you, 100%.
Asset, 100%. She was there, 100%. She joined all the cochlear groups before I did, and she was already like 10 steps ahead of me, and she knew everything about like, I thought the scar was going to be like, all over the place. And then, you can't even see it. And so she was just able to be there. And I think that was really a catalyst for me. And, I had a couple incidences where I couldn't hear anything, even with hearing aids. So with hearing aids, I wasn't able to get that hearing, and it just became really emotional and like, oh my goodness, like it's not working. She was there, right there. And she just kind of knew like, all right, let's take the next step. Let's make this better. The technology exists. It's there. It's been working. It's been proven. It's not experimental anymore. And so let's just roll the dice. Let's go for it.
Yeah, or not roll the dice, because I think you were much more calculating than that, frankly. But I understand.
Yeah, of course. I wouldn't say roll the dice. And I would say roll the dice knowing that 7 is on each side.
Right, of the die. Yeah, fair enough. That's a good analogy. And so, we were talking before about, I just thought it was a profound thing. You were talking about your experience in the chat groups and about there were some people who you were so surprised about their hearing loss and what they were choosing to do. So can you share a little bit about that? Because I think it's a really interesting insight for somebody who really kind of didn't have an option, right? Because it was part of what you needed your whole life.
And interestingly enough, in the Facebook groups that I'm in, almost all the posts were, I all of a sudden lost my hearing. And they somehow found the group, and they're in this exploratory stage. What do I do? How do I do this? Or what's it like? And every single response to that post, for example, is a life-changing experience. It's a life-enhancing experience. And, my big hang-up was, it was odd. It's kind of vain, but was that I wear hats. And I was always worried, like, I'm never going to wear a hat again. I kept telling my wife, I'm never going to wear a hat again. I'm going to lose all my hair, and that's just going to be the life. And I'm just going to be this hatless dad, because dads wear hats now, and that's just the way it is. And so I wear my hat, I wear it backwards, I wear it forward. I mean, a hat's just kind of because I have longer hair and I don't like it getting in my face. And it's kind of a big thing for me. And it was oddly kind of stopping me. And I remember the day after the surgery, or 2 days after, before I got activated, I just went in and I got a magnet out of the bag, and I totally shouldn't have done that. But then I got the magnet and I put it up, and I went, oh my gosh, it's in the wrong place. Oh my gosh, it's way up here. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to be able to wear this hat. Oh my goodness. I wear a hat every day now. I mean, I'm always wearing a hat. It works. It's fine. It's great. And something that I think people are just worried about what others will think. And I say, don't worry about that, because your hearing is the most important thing for you. And it becomes a part of you. And oddly enough, I'm not hiding it. I'm not like I was back in, the early days. I'm like, this is me, this is who I am. And, it's the new thing. It's the coolest thing right now. So, you don't have one. I'm sorry for you. So I do. So this is the way it is. And it's more of the attitude. Like, I have it. I got it. It makes me who I am. It makes me different in some way.
That's great. That's a wonderful story. So Dominic, I love asking everybody, what's your favorite sound? Like, what sound do you love?
My favorite sound, I would say, without being too emotional, is probably hearing my 4-year-old and her voice. And when she talks, it's such a nice little voice, and being able to hear her is just a blessing. And I'm very fortunate now. I can hear it before, and before it was much different. And now I can actually hear her real voice. And she's 4, and it's, just a little voice. And she'll say things like, I love you, Daddy. Or she'll whisper in my ear, and she'll just kind of say these really cute things like, you make the best food, and I love you. And it's just really small and simple. And I'm able to hear that. I go, wow, that's amazing. I can hear that. So that's probably my favorite sound right now. And then Yeah, so that's probably the best.
That's a wonderful sound when you think about it. It's amazing. So we have Dominic Bartola here. He does all sorts of, he's a public speaker. He'll speak professionally and do keynotes. Dominic, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
Best way is just to email me, and best email is db@dominicbartola.com or dominicbartola.com is my speaking site, and that's the best way.
So they know. Go ahead and spell it so they can.
DOMINIC Bartola BARTOLA.com.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure people they're not looking at some other.
No. There's only one Dominic Bartola in this world. So you're not going to get confused.
Yeah, but if you do a D instead of a T or something like that.
Sure.
Well, this has been a great conversation, and I really appreciate you coming in here and, especially sharing your personal experience. Because I think, I can tell people, like I told you, like, what are you waiting for? But you telling people what are they waiting for and how much of a difference is so much more powerful. I mean, it's like anything. It's the reason why, we all read reviews online. We want to know what other people's experience is, not, me telling you what your experience is. So this has been great.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. And we look forward to doing the other side for you. So you're hearing with both ears.
Hope so. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Have a great weekend. Thanks, Dominic.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Listen Up podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get updates on future episodes.